They thought she was just another woman waiting in the lobby. Quiet, unassuming, forgettable. But what no one realized was that the woman being dismissed today once signed the paychecks of everyone in the building. In a bank that prided itself on polish and protocol, Denise Langford had come back not for revenge, but for revelation. And in 5 short minutes, the ones who whispered about her would find their careers rewritten. This isn't just a story about power, it's about what happens when the system forgets who's holding the pen. The red light blinked twice, then again. Denise Langford's executive keycard had just denied her own access. She stood still in front of the glass door, her hand remaining on the scanner for a moment longer than necessary, as if time itself might reconsider. The red light held firm. Her reflection, framed in the silver trim of the door, was neat, understated. Navy wool coat buttoned to the collar, low black heels, her natural hair pulled into a twist bun. No badge, no entourage, just her. Inside the lobby of Meridian Financial's Evanston branch, everything gleamed. The floors had been buffed to a shine that mirrored the Client Service Excellence Week banners strung across the ceiling. Smiling white faces, posed handshakes, scripted gratitude. The air carried that artificial chill of a place kept pristine, more for optics than comfort. Denise lowered her hand and stepped back. 6 months ago, she'd signed off on the enhanced security protocols for executive wings. Tracy Whitmore had insisted on them. "We need more layers," Tracy had said. "Not everyone needs to know who walks these halls." At the time, it had made sense. Now, that logic flickered in red above the door. A man approached from the hallway, a precise figure in a gray suit with a center-part haircut and eyes like locked drawers. He didn't hurry. When he reached her, he didn't smile. "This area is restricted," he said flatly. Denise looked at him, not surprised. "Yes," she replied gently. "I was trying to access the executive hallway. I'll need to verify your appointment." She tilted her head slightly. "Of course." Then she walked away from the door without another word, her steps steady. A few heads in the lobby lifted. Most didn't. She lowered herself onto one of the soft leather benches near the front reception, smoothing her coat as she sat. The receptionist, barely out of college by the looks of her, lifted her eyes toward Denise. For a moment, their gazes met. Then the young woman glanced down again, fussing unnecessarily with a stack of blank deposit slips. The moments that followed passed in silence. Denise didn't check her phone. She simply waited. A white man entered the bank, mid-50s, tailored navy suit, Rolex, voice slightly too loud. "Morning, Lisa," he called as he crossed the lobby. The receptionist brightened instantly. "Mr. Harbridge, welcome!" He was ushered forward. The same hallway, the same door. His card blinked green. Open. Denise's expression didn't shift. Not even a flicker. But her posture straightened imperceptibly. Her hands, folded neatly in her lap, stilled. The receptionist looked her way again. Quickly, then away. The air in the room seemed cooler than when she'd arrived. From above, one of the ceiling-mounted security cameras rotated quietly on its axis, catching her profile. She glanced up at it and held the gaze. Her chin lifted just slightly. The red light above the door glowed again behind her. The red light blinked twice. Then again. Denise Langford's executive keycard had just denied her own access. She stood still in front of the glass door, her hand remaining on the scanner for a moment longer than necessary, as if time itself might reconsider. The red light held firm. Her reflection, framed in the silver trim of the door, was neat, understated. Navy wool coat, buttoned to the collar, low black heels, her natural hair pulled into a twist bun. No badge, no entourage, just her. Inside the lobby of Meridian Financial's Evanston branch, everything gleamed. The floors had been buffed to a shine that mirrored the Client Service Excellence Week banners, strung across the ceiling. Smiling white faces, posed handshakes, scripted gratitude. The air carried that artificial chill of a place kept pristine, more for optics than comfort. Denise lowered her hand and stepped back. 6 months ago, she'd signed off on the enhanced security protocols for executive wings. Tracy Whitmore had insisted on them. "We need more layers," Tracy had said. "Not everyone needs to know who walks these halls." At the time, it had made sense. Now, that logic flickered in red above the door. A man approached from the hallway, a precise figure in a gray suit with a center-part haircut and eyes like locked drawers. He didn't hurry. When he reached her, he didn't smile. "This area is restricted," he said flatly. Denise looked at him, not surprised. "Yes," she replied gently. "I was trying to access the executive hallway. I'll need to verify your appointment." She tilted her head slightly. "Of course." Then she walked away from the door without another word, her steps steady. A few heads in the lobby lifted. Most didn't. She lowered herself onto one of the soft leather benches near the front reception, smoothing her coat as she sat. The receptionist, barely out of college by the looks of her, lifted her eyes toward Denise. For a moment their gazes met. Then the young woman glanced down again, fussing unnecessarily with a stack of blank deposit slips. The moments that followed passed in silence. Denise didn't check her phone. She simply waited. A white man entered the bank. Mid-50s, tailored navy suit, Rolex, voice slightly too loud. "Morning, Lisa," he called as he crossed the lobby. The receptionist brightened instantly. "Mr. Harbridge, welcome." He was ushered forward. The same hallway, the same door. His card blinked green. Open. Denise's expression didn't shift, not even a flicker. But her posture straightened imperceptibly. Her hands, folded neatly in her lap, stilled. The receptionist looked her way again. Quickly, then away. The air in the room seemed cooler than when she'd arrived. From above, one of the ceiling-mounted security cameras rotated quietly on its axis, catching her profile. She glanced up at it and held the gaze. Her chin lifted just slightly. The red light above the door glowed again behind her. From the break room, someone laughs. She doesn't even look like she has a checking account. The voice carried, half-muffled by the doorway, but unmistakably Ben Crandall's, flippant, performative, always loud enough for effect. The scent of fresh-brewed coffee mingled with antiseptic floor polish, and the faint, generic jazz humming from overhead. The Evanston branch of Meridian Financial looked like professionalism bottled and labeled for sale, shiny, symmetrical, sterile. At the far end of the main lobby, Denise Langford remained seated, a quiet presence in a space built to ignore her. A few clients came and went. None looked twice. Behind the teller windows, Holly Givens tried not to flinch. Her fingers moved nervously over a row of deposit slips that didn't need sorting. She'd heard Ben's comment. So had Tyler, who gave only the ghost of a smirk before glancing back down at his screen. In the break room, Ben continued, now speaking to Tyler in a stage whisper. "I'm betting inheritance, or a divorce. Definitely not earned." Holly's hand hesitated mid-shuffle. She glanced toward Denise. The woman hadn't moved, still seated, still silent. She looks familiar, Holly thought. But from where? Just then, the lobby's energy shifted, the kind of shift that came with authority. Tracy Whitmore entered, heels sharp on the tile, a tablet in hand, posture unyielding. Her eyes scanned the room quickly, locking on Denise. Without introduction, Tracy walked directly over. "Ma'am," she said, voice tight with polite hostility. "This area is for priority clientele. I'm going to need to see verification." Denise reached into her bag and calmly handed over both her ID and bank card. She didn't smile. She didn't explain. She just waited. Tracy glanced. Barely. Not enough to read the name, only enough to perform the act of checking. "We've been seeing unusual activity from accounts like these lately," she said, her tone smooth, sugary, and unmistakably targeted. Emmett Brooks, the new security hire, had been watching from his post near the corner. He shifted uneasily now, stepping slightly closer, his gaze flitting from Tracy to Denise, then back. His hand hovered near his walkie, unsure. Denise remained perfectly still. Tracy's smile tightened. "If you're uncomfortable here, there's a check cashing center across the street. They're a bit more equipped to handle your kind of banking needs." From behind the teller counter, Holly's fingers froze entirely. Nobody said anything. Nobody stopped her. The room was quiet, except for the music and the ticking clock behind the teller line. Denise reached into her bag again, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a small leather keychain. She placed it on the counter beside her ID. It was deep brown, worn in the corners, but the gold initials gleamed as if they'd been polished just this morning. DL. "I'd like to complete my transaction here," she said, voice steady. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ben scoffed under his breath and turned back toward the break room. Tracy's eyes lingered on the initials, confusion flickering just beneath her surface calm. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. Denise, without hurry, reached for her phone. A single name was already cued on the screen. She tapped it. Michelle Ayers. 5 minutes later, the woman they tried to remove owned the room. Denise stood exactly where she had been, unmoved. Her phone call had ended with just 2 words. Yes, now. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't made a scene. And yet the air had shifted. The temperature, the weight, the way eyes began to linger. Mr. Ellison, seated by the window with a checkbook in his lap, tilted his phone slightly in Denise's direction, recording silently. His face was carved with something older than outrage. It was memory. Familiarity. Tracy still stood by the counter, arms crossed tighter than before, her tablet clutched like a shield. She'd been scanning the system, trying to find something, anything, to validate her assumption. Her authority still wrapped around her shoulders like a corporate lanyard. But its weight had changed. Ben leaned halfway against the teller window, chewing at his lip. Tyler had stopped pretending to work. Holly remained at her station, a stack of untouched forms before her. Her fingers had gone pale from pressing the edges. Then they heard it. The crisp echo of sharp heels on marble. Not hurried. Measured. Certain. Michelle Ayers appeared at the far end of the lobby. She didn't pause to look around, didn't offer greetings or gestures. Her navy coat flared slightly with each step, the silver meridian pin at her collar catching the light. She walked straight toward Tracy. "Tracy Whitmore," she said calmly, voice resonating without needing to rise. "Do you know who this woman is?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Tracy opened her mouth, then closed it again. A flicker of recognition flashed across her face, retreating just as quickly behind a wall of pride. "I was in the middle of verifying." Michelle cut her off with a glance so swift and absolute it didn't need words. She turned, addressing the room. Not just staff, but customers. "This is Denise Langford, interim CEO of Meridian Financial." The words didn't drop so much as detonate. Ben's jaw slackened. Tyler's posture straightened like a pulled thread. Holly's eyes widened, the color draining from her cheeks. Emmett, who had taken a step forward moments ago, stepped back now, visibly rattled. Denise remained still. She had not spoken since the moment Michelle entered. Michelle tapped her tablet. A video began to play. Sound low, but unmistakable. Ben's voice. Inheritance, maybe? Definitely not earned. Then Tracy's. Check cashing might be more her style. And finally, a muted clip of Denise standing before the glass door earlier that morning, the red light blinking above her. The video ended. Nobody moved. Michelle's gaze returned to Tracy. "Your employment is terminated," she said. "Effective immediately." The lobby went silent, as if everyone had exhaled at once and forgot how to draw breath again. Tracy didn't speak. Her hands clenched around her tablet until her knuckles whitened, but she didn't protest. Michelle turned toward Ben and Tyler. "We'll be reviewing your conduct, extensively." Ben started to speak. Some defense half-formed, but Michelle didn't wait. She turned back to the center of the room, where Denise still stood beneath the glass lighting. Mr. Ellison finally lowered his phone and stood. His voice was low but clear. "About time someone saw what really happens here." Tracy's mouth moved, but no words followed. Her world was suddenly made of glass, and it was cracking. She stood there, tablet trembling slightly in her hands, blinking fast as if she could will the moment away. The silence pressing down on the Evanston branch lobby was not the absence of sound. It was the weight of exposure, of eyes, of truth. Michelle Ayers stood beside Denise, her presence a wall no one dared lean against. Her fingers moved with measured certainty as she opened a document on her tablet and cast it to the wall-mounted display behind the teller counter. Graphs, charts, percentages, all beautifully designed, all damning. "These are service disparities across racial demographics," Michelle said, her voice flat and factual. "Within this branch." On the screen, color-coded bars revealed the gaps. Loan approvals, customer satisfaction surveys, wait times, decline rates. Every category, a quiet indictment. "Aggregate data doesn't lie," she continued. "But it doesn't tell the whole story either. That's why we cross-reference with live footage." She tapped again. The screen shifted. 3 brief clips played in succession, each showing a different white client requesting a large withdrawal. Smiles, laughter, No delays. Green lights all around. The screen went black again. Tracy's voice cut through, brittle. We were protecting the bank. These were security procedures. Denise turned, slowly, toward her. Her tone was cool but laced with something sharper now. From whom? There was a pause, long enough to let the question fill the room. Across the marble floor, Mr. Ellison took a deliberate step forward. He didn't raise his phone this time. She treated me the same way, he said, nodding toward Tracy. Last March. I didn't speak up, didn't think it would matter. Tracy's hands clutched her tablet as though it might anchor her. Michelle nodded once. This is not personal, she said to the room. This is pattern. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out 3 sealed envelopes. Without ceremony, she placed them on the counter before Tracy, Ben, and Tyler. Get your things. Ben's throat bobbed. Tyler looked down at his shoes. Tracy stood frozen for a beat too long, then reached for the envelope with stiff fingers, her polished nails tapping against the edge. Her face was flushed but blank. A mask. The clients in the lobby had stopped pretending to browse. One woman held a brochure upside down, forgotten in her hands. Another man, in a construction jacket, stared openly. It wasn't spectacle they were watching. It was reckoning. Tracy turned and began walking. Her heels, once sharp and certain, now landed unevenly on the tile. As she passed Holly, the younger woman's hand tightened on her clipboard until her knuckles blanched. As the glass door eased shut behind Tracy, Holly leaned slightly toward Denise and whispered, I should have said something. Denise didn't look at her. She kept her eyes on the glass, on the space Tracy had just left behind. You still can. 3 cardboard boxes, 3 names erased. But culture doesn't vanish with a signature. The boxes sat just inside the manager's office, once Tracy's, now stripped of her perfume, her tablet, her presence. Only the desk remained, flanked by sunlight that now fell at a sharper angle through the slatted blinds. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and paper. Denise stood by the window, her hands resting lightly on the back of the leather chair. She didn't sit. Power wasn't in posture today. It was in presence. Holly Gibbons entered quietly, shoulders drawn, clipboard still pressed tightly to her chest like a shield. She stopped just inside the doorway. You asked to see me? Her voice barely rose above the creak of the door as it shut behind her. Denise nodded once. Yes. She gestured to the chair across the desk. Holly sat, not relaxing. You witnessed what happened out there, Denise said. And you didn't speak. I want to know why. Holly looked down, then back up. Her voice steadied just enough. I was scared, she said, not just of them, of being next, of being wrong. Denise didn't flinch. That's honest. I didn't agree with them, Holly added quickly. I stayed quiet. Silence stretched between them. Then Denise moved to the desk and pulled out a plain white envelope. She slid it across. Interim branch manager. Holly blinked. What? You'll be supervised, Denise said. You'll be trained. You'll be watched. And trusted. That's how change begins. Not with words, but with accountability. Holly took the envelope, hands still trembling. Don't mistake this for forgiveness, Denise added. It's an opportunity, one you'll have to earn. From the hallway, the sound of quiet footsteps. Emmett lingered by the door, not intruding but clearly listening. Denise turned to him. You have something to say? He nodded. Just thank you. For not assuming the worst in me. I know I didn't do enough either. She met his eyes. Then do more. Starting now. He straightened, the shame in his posture softening. Not gone, but acknowledged. Later, on the main floor, Michelle stood near the teller line, phone pressed to her ear, already speaking with central HR policy drafts. Review committees. Independent oversight. The wheels were turning. Denise walked with Holly to the VIP hallway, the same stretch of glass and chrome where the red light had once blinked twice, then again. Holly hesitated. Then she lifted her new badge and scanned it. The light turned green. The lock clicked. They didn't step through. But they didn't need to. Michelle approached from behind, a manila folder in hand. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held a spark. She extended the folder toward Denise. You ready to take this to every branch? 6 months later, the door opened before Denise touched it. She paused for half a second, surprised only by the ease of it, not the technology, but the gesture. The glass door to the Evanston branch, once guarded by blinking red lights and stiff postures, now glided open as she approached. No badge, no scan, just recognition. The spring sunlight poured across the marble floor, softened by flower planters, brimming with yellow daffodils outside. Inside, the lobby was bathed in that mid-morning calm, where nothing feels urgent but everything is attended to. No banners, no stage smiles, just quiet energy, warm and real. Denise walked in, alone, wearing a slate gray coat and soft-soled shoes that made no sound on the tile. She didn't announce herself. She wasn't CEO today. Just a woman with history in the room. From the teller line, a black woman in her 30s laughed gently with a white client as they reviewed a deposit slip together. Across the floor, a Latina mother waited with a stroller, a cup of apple juice balanced in her hand. No one stared. No one shifted away. People coexisted here now. Visible. Holly spotted Denise first. She was standing behind the manager's desk, clipboard in one hand, greeting a walk-in client with the other. Her voice was clear, professional, but warm. She caught Denise's eye, smiled, and offered a small wave. "Coffee?" she asked across the lobby. No fanfare, no script. Denise nodded. "Black, if you have it." "No other kind," Holly called back, already heading toward the break room. Near the far wall, framed photos lined a modest display: employees, customers, volunteers. At the center was a quote in bold serif font, etched beneath a black and white portrait of Mr. Ellison in his postal uniform. "Respect is not a service, it's a right." Beneath it, his name and the date of the quote, March 2024. Denise moved slowly, hands clasped behind her back. She stopped near the community board, flyers for financial literacy classes, small business grants, a donation drive for local shelters. Beside her, a little girl stood on tiptoe to reach a poster pinned near eye level. She looked about 6, her curls bouncing as she turned to her mother and pointed. "Mommy," she said, "she looks like me." Her mother glanced down, smiled, and nodded. Denise didn't correct them. She didn't say a word. She just let the moment rest, like warm sun on cool skin. Behind her, someone at the counter, older, white, blue-collar jacket, was signing a withdrawal slip. "They used to act different here," he muttered to the teller. "Whatever changed. Thank God." No one replied. The silence held its own agreement. Denise turned and made her way to the door. She passed through, without pause, without barrier. Outside, the breeze was softer than she remembered, more forgiving. Across the street, a white van was parked by the curb. A local news station's logo glinted on the side. A reporter stood with a cameraman, angled toward the bank, waiting. Denise glanced once, then turned down the sidewalk. She didn't stop. Some victories are better left unwitnessed. The door no longer needed permission to open. That was the difference. Denise felt it in the silence that greeted her, not of suspicion, but of trust slowly earned. Justice didn't roar. It settled in new habits, quiet corrections, and the small, steady dignity of being seen. What was shattered wasn't just a policy, but a pattern rebuilt through courage that never needed to shout. Sometimes, the most powerful transformations are the ones no one claps for, and yet they remain,